Good morning. Our opening words this morning are number 580 from the hymnal, The Task of the Religious Community. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing our opening hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. We will do all 4 verses this morning, so take a good deep breath. Good morning and welcome to all. My name is Jennifer Bacmeister and I will be your worship leader this morning. If you are new to this faith, you will find Unitarian Universalists travel many different paths to discover purpose and meaning in their lives. I came to Buttman Bridge seeking a church home that would support my quest for understanding the various yet universal truths that surround us. I have found that here, along with the nicest people you could ever hope to meet. Perhaps you can tell from our name that our church has a kind of combined theology. The Unitarians taught that there is one God, one source, and because we all come from this one source, we are inextricably bound together with our lives as our only true test of faith. The Universalists taught us that God loves everyone, so we must take care of each other. We must love our neighbors and help strangers, for love is what lifts up all of us. We unite in our belief in the worth and dignity of everyone. We believe it's our obligation to express our faith through acts of compassion and justice. We're people who actively invite intellectual and spiritual growth. We Our kids ask questions and think. We practice a life-affirming faith and embrace people who are hurting or bereaved. We'd like to take this opportunity to welcome any first-time visitors or returning guests who are here with us today. We are very glad to have you here, and we hope that you will feel welcome and will want to get to know us. Be sure to stop by our welcome table at the entryway and pick up some information about our church and our denomination. The folks at the table will answer any questions, or they will introduce you to somebody who knows the answer to your question. You're invited to sign in as a guest and get a name tag so that we know who you are. We offer regular Learn About Buckman Bridge classes, and if you are interested in membership, our membership chair, Julie Smithers, standing in the back, looking lovely, will be happy to talk to you about the path to membership. You can also ask anyone with a new Ask Me sticker on their name tag. They are the source of much knowledge. If you are ready to jump in and help out, we are always looking for volunteers. There are usually several different opportunities. If you're interested, there are sign-up sheets on the back table. We invite our guests, along with everybody in the congregation, to join us after the service for fair trade coffee, refreshments, and conversation. I am excited this morning to share with you the sermon of Reverend Ann Mason, the senior minister of First Parish in Lexington, Massachusetts. It's hard to think about a pandemic having an upside, but we have all learned that technology can bring people together, and for that I'm grateful. And you may also notice while reading Reverend Mason's bio in the order of service, which I don't have one in front of me, that initially Gary was listed as our accompanist today, but clearly the young blonde woman in the corner is not Dr. Gary Smart. Not that she couldn't be a doctor, I'm just saying she's not Gary Smart. Gary's under the weather, and we are happy that Sydney has come from Gainesville this morning to share her talent with us. Oh. It's going to be one of those days where my pages stick together. I can't see anything. I'm going to ask David Dean to come forward and light our chalice, as we do each Sunday, as both a literal and figurative symbol of our faith and the light that we hope to share within the world. And as we hear the words of Pat Uribe Lichty, let us center ourselves and enter into worship together. Our chalice is a reminder that in hard times, our ancestors in faith acted with courage to bring hope and safety, to bring life itself to threatened people. We light it today as a reminder of who we are called to be in a world still dangerous and despairing. With courage and faith, we bring ourselves to the work before us. Thank you, David. In the same way the chalice holds our flame, our covenant holds our congregation. As a creedless religion, we are beholden to each other to form and participate in the kind of community that moves us toward a kinder and more just world. Please join me in reciting our congregational covenant, which is printed in your order of service. We covenant to engage one another with honesty, kindness, and respect, to value diversity, seek understanding of our differences, and practice gracious accountability with care, love, and empathy. We make these promises to those who are here and those yet to come, so that we may be a safe, welcoming, and beloved community of acceptance, learning, and transformation. Y'all sound great, and I know Reverend Carmen's going to be here next weekend, and she loves to hear us read that with enthusiasm, so that was a good practice run for that. If you would now please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing the call to worship. The words are printed in your order of service. church, we take up an offering. It's good to remind ourselves from time to time that the offering is symbolic as well as practical. We know that it's through pledges and donations that we build our budget and fund our programs and ministries, pay our staff, and finance the comfort and beauty of our building and grounds. And we know that we could easily submit those pledge checks to the church at any convenient time. But we pass the plate during our worship service to make a community expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance, to visibly bring in the harvest at this most cherished hour of our week. Our offering says that the act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else we do here on Sunday mornings. Even if during this ritual your offering is only symbolic, please take the plate and pass it to your neighbor. Our offertory ushers, Michelle Locker and Joe Russo, will help us cross the aisles and any gaps in the seats. Michelle and Joe, if you'll please come forward now to gather the offering, and at the end of the offering, we will rise and sing Spirit of Life hymn number 123. So as you know, our sermon today is a video presentation from Reverend Ann Mason, and she used this reading in her service, so I want to share this with you as well. It's called We Are Also the Shadow by Adrian Marie Brown. We are infinite, fractal, timeless. When blood spills, we are the wounded place, the sensitive scar tissue, protecting life from death until death. We are tattooed by grief, that love language. Our rage and our weeping show where we fester, where the fight is. That bile, that grime in the fold, that stench, that's a warning. There's a standard we still need to set. We cannot stagnate for long. We are the river, we are the droplets that spill through the soil to quench at the root. We are overflowing your structures, your cons. Feel our pounds, your borders so waterlogged and fragile. We the seep, we the slow creep of holy flood through your ceiling, the rising, rapid tide within, each liberating question rushing under every skin. We are the deepest place. The light cannot reach us unless we choose the mountain path for an age. It's all archipelago to us. We ancient, we the patient ones. We carve our fury with knives made of bones. We are the nightmare that wakes you to leave this burning house, but you must recall we are also the matches. We are the balance, not only the flame in the dark, but each silhouette against the bright. We are the spark of life that shines. We are also the shadow. We are everything you make live in shadow, you who eat only sunlight and death. We are underground. We are the dirt. We know who we go home to. We are not lost. We cannot lose. We know death is a portal. We are the black hole through which all life must burst. We know life is a miracle. We who spin on an axis pulsing like a heart, we still beat. We go pray in the dark. We know where God lives, but tonight we just shadow on sunlight, eyes closed against the glare. And Reverend Mason offered these words on that prayer. Adrian Marie Brown's incredible poem invites us to be present in the circle of life, in all its height and depth of life, and in death and darkness. The intensity of these words, she lifts up the miracle of life itself, but she does not ignore the shadow on the sunlight. She says, we know who we go home to. We are not lost. We cannot lose. We know death is a portal. We are the black hole through which all life must burst, and we know life is a miracle. Words matter. Poetry matters. May brave poems like these help us through the stagnation of our times. May they offer us a new pathway to find the joy of life, even though we are tattooed by grief. I am so happy to bring this sermon to you from the church in Massachusetts, live-ish, via pre-recorded Reverend Ann Mason's sermon, The iChurch Needs to Be Rebooted.
When I first moved to this part of Massachusetts, I was so excited to be in the cradle of the Transcendentalists. Writers such as Alcott, Emerson, and Thoreau have been fundamentally important to the development of Unitarian philosophy over the years. And it has been exciting to be in the midst of these currents of thought to see how they have developed over the years. I know that some of you regularly swim in Walden Pond. What a treasure. Emerson's Divinity School Address of 1838 remains for me a seminal text, inviting us to use our own intuition and experience to connect with the divine. I love his exploration of Eastern religious thought, which encourages us to seek the divine within ourselves instead of only in the remote ether of the universe. And yet, there are residual philosophies contained within our own Unitarian Universalism, which come directly from these writers, which now, in our current context, give me pause. Well, more than pause. Heebie-jeebies would be the right word. This morning, I would like to compare some of these historic perspectives with current writers who are Black, queer, and emergent. It's quite a contrast, but bear with me. In my lived experience, Emerson's essay, Self-Reliance, has been a foundational text for many Unitarians. I know this because I've been asked to read quotes from this particular essay in many Unitarian memorial services. So try on this Emerson quote. To believe your own thought, to believe that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men, that is genius. Good at first reading, right? I love that first part about believing your own thoughts. We need encouragement to lift up above the crowd and listen to our own hearts, to trust in ourselves. But reading that second part in light of all the anti-racism training that we're doing, which asks us to never assume that my truth will be the same for another person from another cultural perspective, makes me see this in a new light. And so as I read this essay, my hackles began to rise. How can I speak for all men as a white cisgender woman? I can't even speak for all white cisgender women, let alone for queer women or men of color. Well, now I understand that the context of Emerson's essay, written in 1841, was much different than our worldview is today. It was the height of the American Romantic movement, after all. But what gets me is the total self-focus of his definition of worth. It is not the good of the community, but the needs of the individual, which requires the ironclad strength of will for Emerson. Remember these words? Whoso would be a man would be a nonconformist. That sound familiar? He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the name of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Thank you, Emerson. Yes, of course, I believe that the integrity of my own mind is a crucial piece of my development and of my own individual progress. But to say that nothing is sacred but my own mind seems to exalt the individual over and above the sacredness of everything else. Emerson says, "No law can be sacred to me but that of my nature. Good and bad are but names very readily transferable to that or this. The only right is what is after my constitution. The only wrong, what is against it." Does this define right as what is good for me? To the extent that what is right for another has nothing to do with my definition of the concept of right? Are my individual needs and my self-definition the arbiter of what is right for someone else? Well, as I read through the rest of Emerson's famous essay, I just discovered an allergic reaction. So finally, this quote just put me over the edge. And I apologize. I know some of you absolutely love Emerson, and so do I. But this quote, he said, "Then again, do not tell me, as a good man did today, of my obligation to put all men in good situations. Are they my poor? I tell thee, thou foolish philanthropist, that I grudge the dollar, the dime, the cent I give to such men as do not belong to me and to whom I do not belong." It's there. Oh dear. I think this philosophy is the very knife which sharpened the bootstraps that we are all supposed to be wearing. He separates people into a class to whom he wants to belong from those who do not belong to him. He absolves himself of all responsibility for those he does not respect. He exalts himself above the muck and mire of humanity. I think he is engaged in one of man's oldest exercises in moral philosophy. That is the search for a superior moral justification for selfishness, all in the name of individualism. So here, in a nutshell, is the beginning of our American adulation of individualism. It is the source of the prioritization of our individualism over our collective responsibilities, which has caused such a rift in our society. It is what continues to promote the gap between rich and poor, which divides Congress, amongst other things. It is also the start of what Frederick Muir has called the iChurch. In his Berry Street essay, which I heard in 2012, he asks us to, quote, think of the I that's placed in front of the name of Apple products. Some say the I means internet. Others explain that the I stands for individual. This is your personal piece of technology to be used for whatever purposes you want. I think this individualism in technology leads people to see everything, including the church, as something only for their own personal growth, to be used whenever they want it and to shape their own image. Is our denomination suffused with individualism? Do we have Emerson to thank for that? Are we the iChurch? Well, for 2 centuries, sympathetic observers from Thomas Jefferson to Harvard scholar Diana Eck have said that Unitarian Universalism can be the religion of the future. Not that we are, but that we can be. Yet we remain a small religious minority, in spite of being a justice-seeking faith, in spite of the ministries to which we are committed, in spite of the marketing that we have done, we have not grown. Muir holds that the thing which is holding us back the most is our adherence to individualism. He wrote, many of us were drawn to Unitarian Universalism because it seems to be the church of Emersonian individualism. We are the iChurch. So I believe that we are getting this error message. This iChurch app needs to be upgraded. So what is our pathway to find interconnection as a faith tradition? I think the way through is to listen to the teachings of our younger leaders who ask us to engage in emergent strategies of collective work. Rather than seeing ourselves as lone individuals raging against the machine, they encourage us to develop linkages of trust in each other, to discover the joy of working together, to engage in activities of pleasure while we embrace life itself. We need to discover that our humanity is bound up with each other, that we will progress to the extent that we work together, for each other, not for ourselves alone. This philosophy is not new, my friends. In the 1980s, Bishop Desmond Tutu shared with the Western world the African concept of Ubuntu. It is, he said, the essence of being human. Ubuntu speaks particularly about the fact that you cannot exist as a human being in isolation. It speaks about our interconnection. You can't be human all by yourself, he said. And when you have this quality, Ubuntu, you are known for your generosity. We think of ourselves far too frequently as just individuals separated from each other, whereas you are connected and what you do affects the whole world. When you do well, it spreads out. It is for the whole of humanity, said Bishop Tutu. Now, I know that for many of you, the term Ubuntu is a computer term, which refers to a Linux distribution composed of free and open source software. But as Sarah Hager pointed out to me the other day, this is an open source system. It's made to be shared freely with all people. The company which manages it, called Canonical, named it after the Ngori philosophy of Ubuntu, which they define as, I am what I am because of who you are. Well, Bishop Tutu was a strong messenger of this philosophy. He said, Africans believe that a person is a person through other persons, that my humanity is caught up, bound up inextricably with yours. When I dehumanize you, I dehumanize myself. The solitary human being is a contradiction in terms. Therefore, you seek to work for the common good, because your humanity comes into its own in community, in belonging. I have always found this to be a welcome antidote to the isolation and self-centered perspective of individualism. I'm going to go back for a moment to compare a little bit of Ralph Waldo Emerson and Adrian Marie Brown. They both used a metaphor of water and waves to help us understand their differing views of how society works. Compare this Emerson quote: "Society is a wave. The wave moves onward, but the water of which it is composed does not. The same particle does not rise from the valley to the ridge. Its unity is only phenomenal. The persons who make up a nation today, next year die, and their experience with them." Can you hear the focus on the individual particle separated out from the motion of the wave itself? The individual has little effect on the motion of the whole wave. The drop of water simply is unchanging, individual, unconnected. Depressing, right? At least I think so. Now listen now to the wave metaphor which Adrian Marie Brown uses to describe society. Together we must move like waves. The waves are not the same over and over. Each one is unique and responsive. The goal is not to repeat each other's motion, but to respond in whatever way feels right in your body. The waves we create are both continuous and a one-time occurrence. We must notice how it feels to be in a body, in whole, separate, aligned, cohesive, critically connected. Brown talks about how we feel, not just how we think. She stresses the way that we move together, flocking like starlings, aware of each other in motion, and always, always connected. Here the individual is affected by and has an effect upon the whole, emergent, interconnected, and beautiful. In her book, All About Love, Bell Hooks also cautions us against individualism. She writes, "As much as I enjoy New Age commentary on love, I am often struck by the dangerous narcissism fostered by spiritual rhetoric that pays so much attention to individual self-improvement and so little to the practice of love within the context of community. Packaged as a commodity, spirituality becomes no different from an exercise program. While it may lead to the consumer feeling better about his or her life, its power to enhance our communion with ourselves and others in a sustained way is inhibited." These younger writers practicing emergent strategy want to be part of a new way of being. They explain that we have lived through a good half-century of individualistic linear organizing led by charismatic individuals or budget-building institutions, which intends to reform and revolutionize society, but it falls back into modeling the oppressive tendencies against which we claim to be pushing. Some of those tendencies are seeking to assert one right way or one right strategy, and many align with a capitalistic belief that constant growth and critical mass is the only way to create change, even if they don't use that language. But my friends, something else is possible. Adrian Marie Brown implores us to place love at the center. Love, which is communal, focused on each other, hoping to care for each other, and breaking down the barriers which have separated us from each other for so long. She imagines a radical new way of being, asking us, if love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact on what was considered organizing. If the goal was to increase the love, rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. My friends, the future of our faith lies in finding ways to reduce our tendency to hold our own personal views, our own needs, our own concerns as the most important part of our faith community. If we can find a way to place love at the center instead of individualism, we would become the radically inclusive and hospitable faith that we dream about. I hope that you will join me in exploring this within our church and within our denomination, for this is a future that I want to be a part of. Amen, and blessed be.
Wasn't that amazing? I will ask you now to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing our closing hymn, number 318, We Would Be One. There's 2 whole verses to this song, so we're just going to go ahead and sing both of them. And if at the end of the hymn, if you would please remain standing for our benediction and the extinguishing of our chalice. Benediction today is number 694 from your hymnal written by Frederick Gillis. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. Blessed be, and go in peace.